In a world that moves fast, we all need a place to slow down, to reconnect, to heal. Welcome to A Healer's Path with healer, teacher, award-winning vocalist, and a guide for those ready to awaken their soul, Joy Adler. As a dean at the world-renowned Brennan School of Healing, Joy has spent over 3 decades blending spiritual wisdom with grounded, practical tools and helping people transform pain into purpose with a powerful new healing experience. So now, please welcome the host of A Healer's Path, Joy Adler.
I'm starting to see the light of my home.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to A Healer's Path. I am Joy Adler, your host. I'm so blessed to be so. And, my goal is really to bring the masters of healing arts and music education to you as viewers, to offer inspiration for being all that you're meant to be, to offer tips for optimal health, living your passion on earth, puts you right in alignment with your greatest fulfillment, which of course fills you up and really heals us all the way down to the cellular level, indeed the subatomic level. And we have someone very special today that has done that. Her life is a tribute to supporting others and has been an educator for decades. Today, I want to bring you someone who is also a teacher at the Brennan School of Healing, and she's in the California campus of Brennan School of Healing Science. It is Patricia Powell. She's a novelist and creative writing literature professor at Northeastern University. How about that? As well as being a Brennan practitioner, therapist, she integrates it all. Patricia was born in Jamaica and immigrated to the U.S. as a teenager. She is a graduate of the Wesley College and Brown University. Patricia Powell is the author of the novels Me Dying Trial, A Small Gathering of Bones, The Pagoda, and the Fullness of Everything, a short story, The Guest House, from the anthology Lovers Rock. She also has a short story, The Guest House, on Audible. Isn't that great for people that really love to learn in that regard? And Patricia has completed a new novel manuscript, The Balm Yard, which is, a work in progress too. And it's a book about slavery. So we want to touch base with Patricia about all of this and more. She's been a prolific writer for decades, very well received, acclaimed in her own right. And her books, get this, have been translated in both German and Spanish. She's given lectures and led creative writing workshops worldwide. She lives in Berkeley, California. Lucky you, Patricia. And she's here with us today. She's got some special things to share, and I want to welcome the wonderful Patricia Powell. Hey there.
Hi, Joy.
I know it's
I'm
a
so
little
happy to be
earlier for
here.
you. Oh, it's so
Yeah,
good to have you here, Patricia. Really blessed to know you, to know of your heartfelt work, to have seen it in action. It's like love in action, Patricia. Knowing you from the Brennan School of Healing Science. And students are so blessed now. They've had you as a teacher on the West Coast in Cali for years now. And so thank you for all the work that you've done that has led you to this place of holding space for people who are learning to heal themselves and how to help others.
it's my pleasure to be here with you, Joy.
I'd love to know how all of this work, the writing, healing yourself, learning healing skills, has come together. And a little birdie told me that you were asked recently to teach a new class. And I'm wondering if you can tell our viewers the name of that class and how that has been for you.
Yeah, well, I was asked to teach a course called Writing to Heal, which is a big deal for me because
Mhm.
my healing life and my academic life, they have been very separate for years, but it takes a lot of energy to keep those worlds very separate. And I've been yearning for union, and it's taken me a while to get here, and I feel like that course is a culmination of everything that I want to do. And I started writing very early when I was in college. Um, I started off as an economics major, and when that started to fall apart, my roommate at the time recommended. She said, "Take a creative writing class," and so I did, and I started writing, and I never stopped. And I and that book that I wrote, that very first book, Midnight Trial, was the beginning of the beginning. And I wrote that book. I started it when I was, I don't know, 18 or 19. And I wrote it for the entire time I was in college. And it was a book about coming of age in Jamaica, really. And it was about, talking about writing to heal. I had no idea that that was going to be my life's work. I mean, you just never know. It's so interesting. But I began that book out of such a longing for Jamaica, for home, and for my great aunt who had raised me, and she had recently passed away. And when I wrote, I could be with her, and I could imagine myself in the Caribbean, and it was this great way of transporting myself and bringing alive all the things that I had lost. And so it was magical, and so I just kept doing it, how to bring these people that I love close to me, closer and closer, so that they were never away. And so that's how it started.
Sounds like art as healing, as we hear. Yeah. So you wrote this book as a tribute to your ancestor and felt the ancestors close to you. What would you share with the viewers about following your call to write based on what you learned? I mean, that was a very well received book and it had actually a second edition again. I think you published it in 1991, is that right?
Yeah, it came out when I was, I think, 24 or something like that. And then it came out again like a decade later by another press. I think, this is one of the things that I'll share with my students, that we are always telling stories. Our whole lives are composed of stories. When we meet each other, we're telling stories. When we're talking about our lives, our relationships, our losses, we're always telling stories. And we're also telling stories as a way of healing ourselves. We tell stories so that we can be heard, we can be witnessed, we can be held in our panic, anxiety, suffering. And interestingly enough, we also know, for the most part, how to heal ourselves. And part of that is sharing, of course. But we also know intuitively where we feel the pain in our bodies, where the pain lives. And we also know sometimes what to do, what we need to bring healing and transformation for ourselves. And sometimes even in the telling of the stories, we're doing that. So we do it automatically. And so my class is basically to help students or invite them to become more comfortable with that
Mhm.
process, and also to give them some craft skills to make the work more engaging and to be able to touch other readers. Because when we read, we are in conversation with the writer, and we are also hoping to get some truth, some new understanding, some new insight, some nugget of something that will take us to the next level. So it's a great relationship, reader writer.
I when you start talking about teaching as students, I just really see you light up. Like you get passionate about the skills to support your students. And it sounds like you were sharing, and I'm going to have you pull your mic string just a little bit forward because it's rubbing on your shirt, just so you know. Um, and that is, I heard you say, Patricia, that prior to this course that you're now teaching, right, at Northeastern, you kind of felt like your worlds were compartmentalized.
Totally. I mean, it might be an odd thing to say on a healing show, but I was a little afraid of myself, you know, afraid of my skills, my longing, my and I also wasn't sure, and I'm still not sure, and I actually don't think in all academic circles this kind of work is lovingly received. So um, yeah, so there's some fear. A lot of it is my own, of course. Like I understand that now. It's like if I can accept myself and be okay with that and find a way to move through the world with doing the work that I do in the way that I do it and that's right for me, then I think I will find my way. But I didn't
Mm,
know that before. I was just kind of loving this work, frightened of it, not knowing how to hold it,
mm.
integrate it, all of that. So,
And it sounds like you're doing that, and we have to hear more because you're really laying down some really gold nuggets here for viewers that want to get in touch with themselves. And when we return from our sponsors' announcements, we're going to have more conversation with Patricia Powell from Berkeley, California, on art as healing through writing. So you were invited to teach this course at Northeastern. And where you've been a professor for 30 years, for a long time.
no, I've been a professor for 32 years, but at Northeastern, which is now Northeastern recently took over Mills College, where I've taught for almost 18 years. So I've been with Mills for 18 years. Northeastern recently took over Mills for the last 4 years. So, yeah.
I want to ask you something about the creative process. As a professor, obviously you have your curriculum and you know the time that you're going to be. It's very structured, right? For teaching. But as an artist, as a writer, as a world-renowned writer, well-acclaimed, critically acclaimed writer, what is it about time and space that an artist may need? What do you need personally, Patricia, in order for to be open to, the creativity and the instincts and the insights to write what it is that you're meant to write next?
Well, what I've come to learn is that the writing, I used to think this when I was a new writer, that it was all about me. But but that's not the case. It really is a co-creative process. And it's I think that we are in charge of the very sort of conscious practical level of the work, but there's so much that rises from the unconscious and that we tap into when we write. And I think and so part of it is how to be in sync, right, as we're doing the work. And so I think there's things that help at the conscious level. It helps to have readers so the work is vetted, and it helps to be in a writing group, and so that other writers can say, oh no, that doesn't sound right, oh no, that's not where it should go, oh those people there, that is not realistic, I don't like the way it ends, what if you opened it up a little bit, what if you shifted the point of view. So we need that on the conscious level.
Hmm.
But then we also need to feed the spiritual piece of it. And uh, I like writing in bed first thing in the morning, when I wake up, when I am still slightly asleep and in the unconscious, and where it's it's very quiet, and I feel still very much in my body and in that other world. That's my favorite time to write. Um, and also, the writing also needs to be nourished. Like that aspect of us needs to be nourished, the spiritual part. So um, walking, being in nature is really wonderful for me. I get a lot of stories when I'm walking and quiet. It's like my pores open up into the grass, into the trees, and the information comes in somehow. I'm also more relaxed, and something about movement also helps. Um, and you know, anything in nature, uh, waterfalls, the river, but quiet nature. Uh, Dusk, early morning, um, and even just being quiet. It's because so much of it is listening on the inside. Much of writing, I've come to learn, is listening.
Much of writing, I have come to learn, is about listening.
Yeah,
There's a quote. There's a Patricia Powell quotable quote on a healer's path, a writer's path. Yeah. So those are some fantastic tools that you're sharing with us about your own writing process and kind of opening. I love the spiritual, like you consider it a spiritual discipline and the connection with source and self through nature, quiet nature, that body movement and being in nature supports you. So downloading maybe, ideas that are spontaneous insights of all sorts. I really like that because we recently had a guest on citing that like the most important thing that we can do as humans is to attend to our spiritual aspect of ourselves, which is to be in nature and to just connect. And if we do that, everything kind of comes in a right relationship. And now we have you gracing us with your presence, sharing, gosh, when I'm between the worlds, I like to wake up in the morning and just allow the free flow of thoughts and feelings and writing. And you're talking about an important time that so many people for thousands of years have spoken about, like the high times being in the morning, right? Sunrise and sunset. You discussed writing at dusk. There's some sort of energy to that that can really support people. But more than
mm,
anything, what I'm hearing you say, in order to listen to ourselves, it requires that kind of quiet respite and attunement in a natural world and nature.
mhm.
That's a class. There it is. There's a master class,
That's right.
ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness. I have a question for you, and the audience probably doesn't know this, how unless they went to Barbara Brennan School of Healing Science. And one of the things that we place in the curriculum, Barbara Brennan, a former NASA physicist, was very keen on because she talked about, as we risk healing ourselves, right? Heal or heal thyself, which you've made many references to already in this program. As we penetrate the wound, right? It's in the wound where the gifts of our spirit lie. And, you know, as we do that, light returns from where we've held it back, down, in, over, around, And she purposely wanted a creative arts program for students to feel that they could express themselves anew, express themselves again. And so in the Brennan School, in the fourth class week, right, like kind of in the spring, there is in the curriculum in creative arts, we request that students create an art project based on their internal journey that year. And it can be literally can be art, it can be a writing. We've seen people create something, take photos of it, put it in an album, and then put it in our, art gallery that we put up where people can just enjoy. But I have to ask this. I had to set this up for our viewers. They might not know this, Patricia. As a teacher at the Brennan School in California, how is it for you in that class, walking amidst the art in the gallery, watching the students' creative arts performances?
It's my favorite. It's my favorite time of the year. I mean, I like all the other times too, but this is my best time. I mean, I'm so happy, and I think we can feel in the audience, we can feel uh, the essence of every student, you know, and also you can feel. I mean, spirit is always there, you know, but it's different during the art display and the presentations and the performances. Everybody's like giddy, you know. They're in their essence, um, and and the great thing about the artwork is that it's this moment when they get to remove the chatter, remove themselves, you know, and just sink into something else, some other aspect that uh, is alive, and we get a taste of that during the during the art week, and it's great. I like to have a seat so I can see everything. One year I was the MC, and that gave me so much pleasure, and yeah, it's great.
Is that a little like what you're training writers to do at Northeastern and Mill College and as you're in your work as a professor?
Yeah, you know, we're training them to we're training them um, uh, to do a lot of different things. We're training them to learn how to listen to language, you know, like because we write, but in fact, if we listen very carefully as we are reading something, or well, as we listen very carefully, we can hear all the fears and hesitations that are underneath the language. And so I teach them how to do that, how to listen, you know, carefully to what the writer is putting on the page, but what they actually mean, that's not coming through. But how the lines of the story are shifting under the things that are not said, you know.
Mhm.
And so we teach them how to listen. We teach them how to use language in a very economical way. You know, as poets do that great, but with writers, you know, like you can say, "Oh, the character is walking down the road," and that's fine. The character is walking down the road, but if the character has just gone through a heartbreak, they're not just walking down the road. There's a special way that they're burdened by their walk, that the emotions are falling down on them, and or if they're anxious, you know, there's a particular way that they walk. So we want them to be as specific as possible with language, so it's not just that they're walking, but how are they walking, and is there another word that you can use that is not that means walk, but shows the that embodies more of what's happening inside their bodies. And we teach them how to yes, how to revise, because each time they write a new version of something, they go deeper. They can see it more clearly. um, uh, they can unearth more of the magic that lies underneath. They can become sort of bolder in their investigation, um, and then yeah, they have a chance to perform for us.
I love this. And if you're listening, folks, Patricia Powell, the great author and teacher, is really teaching us today how to get connected to oneself, how to listen, how to phrase things and really dig for the gold of language, the adjectives that describe it, which makes really a writer, doesn't it? After we return from this sponsorship, we're going to connect more and learn even greater things from Patricia Powell and really zero in on what you're getting excited about, Patricia. Thank you. You're beginning to write. Thank you. I just want to say thank goodness these are recorded because these are some fantastic tips from your own life as a writer, but also as a learned professor of decades to support other writers. Patricia Powell Writer.com. Is that where our viewers can find you, Patricia?
Yeah, patriciapowellwriter.com. I think that's correct.
Fantastic. You're so humble in the lab of life. You're like, yeah, I think that's it. We want to put up the cover of this book that was so well acclaimed. It went into a second edition a decade later. Hmm. You want to speak a little bit more about that? I know you talked about it at the top of our time. Tricia, what does this book mean to you so many years thereafter, knowing it's touched many lives?
Yeah. So, for most writers, our first novels tend to be somewhat more autobiographical. And
Hmm.
so this is a novel about my my relationship with my great aunt, really. And it's um it's about um it's about connecting with her and writing about her and thinking about and bringing her alive to me. That
Hmm.
was really important. And after I wrote that book, I I was done with writing about me, and so I wrote another book um, called A Small Gathering of Bones, and that book was about AIDS, and it's a story
Hmm.
about a group of gay men in Jamaica dealing with AIDS during the AIDS epidemic of the 80s. I had a friend who uh, passed away from AIDS. He's a Jamaican man, and like me, he came to the U.S. as a teenager, and he lived here, and he got sick, and his family they were really they were very religious, and they had a really hard time with that, and so I wrote about that. I wrote about um, what it means um, to be gay, and also to struggle with this disease and to not feel the full support of family. And so I wrote that book, and then I was giving a reading in in England, in London, and some a Jamaican man came up to me. There was a group of them in the audience, and they said, this is the first time we've ever read a book about our lives, and a book that took our lives seriously, and that celebrated us. And even though it's a hard topic, it was about us, and I was very moved by that, because most writers, we kind of write in a vacuum. We write our own stories. We're thinking about things. We're not really tapped into how people are going to take the work, not until it comes out. And so it was really moving to connect with these men. And I was just thinking about how the pain of the people in the book was connected to the pain of these men in the audience, and something about the shared connection. And I was, and I thought about literature in a whole different way, that this is what literature can do, that we can speak to each other, and in our shared experiences we can find some kind of embrace, and some kind of kindness, and some kind of healing. And um, and then my next book was a book about immigration. Actually, it's called The Pagoda, and it's a novel about Chinese immigration to Jamaica. And in the 19th century, many Chinese um, went to the Caribbean to live and to work, and it's a history that's not in our history books. But I grew up going to school with a lot of Chinese kids, and so I wanted to learn more about this history, and so I did a lot of research and wrote this novel. And and it was a very interesting thing. I think that I get a little teary when I think about this, because this is when my idea of the that the stories are not just our own, they come from elsewhere. This is a story about cross dressing, actually, because when I was doing the research, I wanted it to be about a woman who had come from China to Jamaica in the 19th century, and the history books showed that women did not come. It was mostly men who came, and the women came much later. And I thought, well, I had just written this book about all these guys. I didn't want to write a book about these guys anymore, so I decided to let her cross dress. And so it's a story about this woman who's passing as a male shopkeeper in Jamaica. And so I was invited, after the book was published, I got this letter from this man named Lowe. My main character's name was Mr. Lowe, the woman passing as the male shopkeeper. And I got this letter from this man named Mr. Lowe, and he said, I read my Mr. Lowe has finished his pagoda. Your Mr. Lowe has not finished his pagoda, but I want to invite you to the inauguration of my pagoda. And I thought, what is this? This is such a strange thing, Lowe, same Lowe, pagoda, what's happening? Anyway, I brought a friend with me, and I went to this event in Toronto, and it's so interesting that the man who invited me also looked like my character.
Mhm.
And he was having a celebration, and the celebration was very similar to one I had written about in my book. It was how I had imagined it, exactly, but here it was in real life. And it was at that moment that it occurred to me that maybe we don't write these books. Maybe we are vessels for them, that they come through us. And if we heed the call, then we take them on. And so, because that book it's kind of an amazing book. Like how I wrote that story, the people I have met as a result of that book. It's currently being made into a film.
Mm.
Anyway, that book is kind of just amazing. I don't know where it came from.
Maybe
um,
we're vessels. And,
yeah,
you just gave two phenomenal examples. And thank you, Patricia, for being a voice for sometimes the voiceless. As we are on the precipice of a very important month of June, we have the month of Pride. LGBTQ plus is really in our awareness, and we want to hold and support for our brothers and sisters and people that are, losing rights in that regard to who they choose to be. And um, I'm really moved by what you shared. And also, Juneteenth is coming up, and you give voice, and are supporting others in Black America to have their voice. And I think it's really important to talk about your next work. And kudos on the film. You've had rave reviews for your books. Folks, you want to check these out at patriciapowellwriter.com. The Pagoda is what you were just speaking to. Want to just circle back about that quickly. In these two examples, you shared where what you had birthed, in these first two books, coming back around, and both in London, both in Toronto, discovering that your books had deep meaning for others, and then realizing that you were a vessel in your writing. Is that the ultimate as a writer, as an artist, to know that your books and your writings have had meaning and are changing lives and giving voice to people and touching their souls?
I think so. I think that's the ultimate, and that's what I also share with my students. You know that you have access to, if you publish a book, you may the smallest print run is probably 3,000, maybe 5,000, and so you're probably reaching 5,000 people. What do you want to say, and how do you want to say it? And it's a really difficult. Well, there's always a lot of pushback when I bring that up. They're like, "Oh, I just want to write a story." But I think after a while, we they we all begin to think about the impact of. We have a platform, we have an audience. We begin to think about, well, what do we want to share? How do we want to do it? How do we want to be in the
It's
world?
a great point, Patricia, because you're saying, hey, listen, we have the power of the pen. Be conscious about what you want to write. You're going to be touching the lives of others. And
Yeah.
that brings us back to time for sponsorship. And when we return, we want to hear about your latest tome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, viewers. This is an epic day on a healer's path. We have an incredible woman who has walked and is talking about sharing her healer's path. Speaking of which, Patricia Powell, you went to healing school, you went through the graduate program. You're now a teacher training teacher as you were a professor for writing. Has your healing journey continued to inspire you? Has it changed or deepened your work in any way? Let's talk about your latest works and if there's a connection to your healing path and writing.
Well, completely. After the Pagoda came out, I went to the Barbara Brennan School of Healing. I wanted to do some work on myself. I actually wanted to learn how to love, um, and that was what brought me. Like I wanted to clear a lot of childhood stuff and open my capacity for receiving and giving love. And that was what I wrote on my application. And it's been a journey, I tell you. Huh. um, but of course, that work has changed my work significantly and changed my outlook. And the book that came after the Pagoda, The Fullness of Everything, is my first sort of healing book. It's about a girl. It's about a lot of things, but it's also about a little girl's relationship with her deceased father. And but there's a lot in there. It's also about two estranged brothers, and how they come together to heal their family once their father has passed away. So it's intense and rich. And then when I was in the ASBIW program, I I became really interested in um, generational trauma and slavery and healing and what that might what that might look like. And so I started two things. I wrote a novel. It's not out yet, called Bombyard, and it's a novel about Jamaican spiritual practices, um, a lot of which came into play during slavery. Was a way that people um, used it to heal themselves and also to free themselves of some of the oppressive stances that were occurring in their lives. And so that's Bombyard. And then I was beginning to think about what it might be like to write a book, not a novel, but a book, a healing book about how to heal generational trauma. So I'm still working on that. It feels like a very I feel like I have to learn more to know how to write that book. It feels huge, and it also feels very simple. But I haven't found my way in it yet. But I am slowly writing around the edges. And
Is
then
this a
I'm also,
process? I wanted to just ask about that for a
yeah.
moment. Still finding your way into that. Because of the success of your published works prior to that, does that help you to trust in the process as you dive deeper into the subject of, intergenerational trauma and healing and slavery? Is it, as an artist and a writer, are you able to trust that process because you've been there before, or is it different with this work?
Well, I think that again, what's different is the more sort of overt spiritual element. So that's new. And so part of it has also been my dis-ease with handling that, such a big thing, and integrating it and writing it and kind of making it a seamless thing. And so that has been a challenge, finding just the right way to present it. And I think I found it in Barnyard, which is, about a woman who resists all of that spiritual stuff until she has to go home to Jamaica and take over her mother's
Mm.
healing yard, her bomb yard, her a kind of healing practice. And she thinks she has no gifts until she gets there, and then things start to happen. Um,
You're giving us a teaser. I can't wait for this book to be published. And your description helped me to understand the title, The Balm, Balm Yard, and
yeah,
how people took up ancient practices for healing intergenerational trauma in Jamaica.
yeah,
This is going to be amazing, and I'm really excited about that, and also what you're currently working on. And I want to go back to something because you named another tip for writers, and I thought that that was very vulnerable. And you talked about being in a writing group and how you vulnerably share with them, obviously, for them to then to be open to feedback that can help you zero in on a character, for example, or use a different frame of reference to describe or go deeper in some regard. And then I was listening as you talked about what you hold space for as a professor and encouraging your writing students. It seems like you've created a kind of community that you're naming is a, kind of a top tip for writers. And it makes sense because you're birthing something. And how do we know how that lands or what that is with people without some all important feedback? I can imagine it's an extremely vulnerable thing to do and yet necessary to make it the greatest work.
absolutely. I mean, that's what I do with my students. I, I hold a space for them to bring this work, and they are very vulnerable as they share, and we give feedback. And as a teacher, you have to set up a space you where the student who's sharing can feel safe to present this work, and where the feedback that they're receiving is the best feedback that is, and but well, feedback that is most useful. Let's just
Mm,
say most useful feedback. And so as writers, as practicing writers, we have to do the same.
yeah.
um, so I get it when they are shy about presenting the work, or when they are in a bad mood because of the feedback that they get. I get it. I'm in a bad mood too. So
So,
um,
yeah, it's a lot of work. And I want to thank you because I can imagine that every day that you sit down to write, you're in alignment with your life's purpose. You have published a lot of great works, and there's more to come, including a film. Folks, if you want to really get to know Patricia Powell and really get into her books, go to patriciapowellwriter.com. And we want to thank you, Patricia, for gracing us, for honoring us with all of the wisdom that you shared today on Bold Brave TV and A Healer's Path. Thank you.
it's been my pleasure. Yeah.
This has been A Healer's Path with host Joy Adler. Tune in next week as each episode is a bridge between the mystical and the everyday, between who you've been and who you're becoming. Live with more presence, more peace, more joy. Mondays, 3 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network, powered by B2 Studios.